Welcome back to Behind the Headlines. Earlier this year, Springfield City Council began a compliance campaign on short-term or vacation rentals. And now they're looking at three recommendations on those regulations, as reported by Jack McGee with the Springfield Daily Citizen, who is back with us now. Welcome back. Good to see you, sir. Okay, so before we get to the proposed changes, have some or a lot of property owners been appealing these regulations to City Council?
Yeah, so the number of appeals has increased in recent months because of the city's recent compliance campaign. Applicants that apply for a short-term rental license to operate like an Airbnb or a VRBO, or it could be on another platform, they're allowed to appeal to the City Council if they are unable to collect enough signatures that are required by the city, or if the property is on a block face with less than 4 homes on that block.
So you just can't open for business and put yourself on VRBO or Airbnb then?
Some of them have, but the city has
You're not supposed to anyway.
Cracked down on them recently.
So one of the proposals to zoom in on about all this is on density, or how close they can be to other vacation rentals or just in neighborhoods. So let's start there.
Yeah, so currently the density of short-term rentals is limited to 1 per 8 residential structures on a block face, which is essentially one side of a city street between two intersections.
Okay.
And the City Council instead is going to consider adjusting that to changing it to a 500-foot radius. So existing licensed short-term rentals would be grandfathered in essentially in the proposed changes, but new short-term rentals would have to be at least 500 feet apart.
Okay. And then why do they want to hand the appeals process over to the Planning and Zoning Commission?
As the city works to update the zoning code, which is currently happening right now, they are looking for opportunities where the final decision on some more administrative things can be made by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And city staff recommended that this could be one of those opportunities.
Alrighty. And then the third is compelling Airbnbs or VRBOs to collect the rental taxes, which apparently is or isn't happening, I guess, depending on location. So what about that?
Yeah, so currently the city is collecting that tax. It's a lodging tax of 5%. That was recently consolidated last year in an election. But the city collects the tax based on revenues reported by the short-term rental owner. But there are some unlicensed short-term rentals that, obviously being unlicensed, they're not paying that tax as well. But the City Council will consider an ordinance essentially requiring these short-term rentals platforms like Airbnb and VRBO to collect that lodging tax for the city.
Okay, and so there's some City Council members, I presume, who supported this early on before these recommendations. What's their viewpoint? Yeah,
so these recommendations were made by the Plans and Policies Committee, which is consists of 4 City Council members. And then some of them expressed some reservations with certain elements of the recommendations, but ultimately they came to consensus on these set of recommendations to forward to the whole of the City Council.
Okay, so does this tell us that city regulators have not been, for lack of a better phrase, heavy-handed enough on enforcement?
There has been a concern for some on the City Council, particularly City Council member Craig Hosmer, who has expressed concern with the proliferation of unlicensed short-term rentals in the city. But up until this year, the city's enforcement of short-term rentals has primarily been complaint-based, and unlicensed short-term rentals, obviously proliferated over recent years. But with the recent compliance campaign, where city officials are able to identify these unlicensed vacation rentals through a monitoring platform, the city has been able to more actively enforce the existing ordinances that are on the books.
So what is the timeline to get these recommendations adopted officially and rolling?
So the timeline on the changes is not yet been determined. They are out of committee now, so they have been forwarded for a formal recommendation process by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then they will go to the City Council, who will have a final vote on whether or not to implement these changes.
All right, we will leave it there for now. It is Jack McGee with Springfield Daily Citizen. You can see his stories online and on social media, as well as this story on KY3.com, the KY3 News app, Roku, Fire Stick Plus, and Apple TV. Jack, thanks. Always good to have you here. Come back soon.